I'm back in the city. So today I'm going to do pull-ups and squats and lunges. Let's see. As always, on the last days I didn't get much sleep, so I'm tired as fuck. But I want to do like half an hour. Let's warm up a bit first. So the quest is to do 10 pull-ups and what did I want to do? 10 pull-ups to 15 squats, no, 20 squats in between, and then go down from the pull-up like a downward pyramid. So 10, 9, 8, 7. Yeah. Alright, let's see how that goes. Today is the 9th January 2026. Pull ups 10. Squats 20. Then a 1 minute rest between. Oh, yeah. Okay, 9 pull-ups. Let's see. Twenty squats. Okay, 8. Twenty squats. Okay, 7. Ugh. Ugh. 6.
They handed me replacement water bottles, packets of goo, and protein drinks from the side of the road, which I consumed in motion to keep my glycogen and electrolyte levels up. I've become much more scientific about my nutrition since that Bioflex Ritz cracker meltdown in San Diego. And with the biggest climb of the day looming into view, I needed to be ready to roar. On a bicycle, mountains produce pain, and pain was my business. As the road peaked in pitch, I put my head down and hammered as hard as I could. My lungs heaved until they were flipped inside out and back again. My heart was a pounding bass line. When I crested the pass, my mom pulled up alongside me and hollered, "David, you are 2 minutes off the lead." Roger that. I curled into an aerodynamic crouch and shot downhill at over 40 miles per hour. My borrowed Griffin was equipped with aero bars, and I leaned over them, focusing only on the white dotted line and my perfect form. When the road leveled off, Chapter 7. At it while she removed the compression tape from my feet. Then I staggered to the stage to accept my medal from Cosman. I just finished one of the hardest races on planet Earth. I visualized that moment 10 times at least and thought I'd be elated, but I wasn't. He handed me my medal, shook my hand, and interviewed me for the crowd, but I was only half there. While he spoke, I flashed the final climb and a pass above 8,000 feet, where the view was unreal. I could see all the way to Death Valley. Near the end of another horrible journey, I got to see where I came from. It was the perfect metaphor for my twisted life. Once again, I was broken, destroyed 20 different ways, but I'd passed another evolution, another crucible, and my reward
Okay, we got 5 to do.
and a few minutes with Cosmic's microphone. It was a whole new bar. I closed my eyes and saw Jurek and Olsen, Akos and Karl Meltzer. All of them had something I didn't. They understood how to drain every last drop and put
It might have been
themselves
6, I don't know.
in the world's most difficult races. And it was time to seek out that feeling for myself. I prepared like a madman. I knew myself and the terrain. I stayed ahead of the quitting mind, answered the simple questions, and stayed in the race. But there was more to be done. There was still somewhere higher for me to rise. A cool breeze rustled the trees, dried the sweat from my skin, and soothed my aching bones. It whispered in my ear and shared a secret which echoed in my brain like a drumbeat that wouldn't stop. There is no finish line, Goggins. There is no finish line.
I absolutely loved that race. That race taught me a lot. And what's funny about that, I was going back through it, and that whole little YouTube,
Yep.
and my ex-wife now, she's not my ex-wife, she was taking the tape off of my feet because I actually, as you know, the listener knows now, I had to tape up my ankles with compression tape, and she was taking it off. But how that all came to be, I believe the movie, they actually did like a documentary on Badwater 135, and I think it's called Running on the Sun. And it kind of featured a guy named Gabriel Flores, and I think the guy named Eric Clifton, or something like that. Anyway, but I lost the guy named Gabriel Flores, and I watched this video probably 200 times from the time I got in the Badwater race to the time I did the movie. They actually did like a documentary on Badwater 135, and I think it's called Running on the Sun. And it kind of featured a guy named Gabriel Flores, and I think the guy name was Eric Clifton, or something like that. Anyway, but I lost the guy named Gabriel Flores, and I watched this video probably 200 times from the time I got in the Badwater race to the time I did the Badwater race. And Gabriel Flores came in second place that year. The year before the documentary, he actually won the race. So I wanted to see how he ran the race. I was trying to get ideas from him, how his crewing was, how his pacing was, all these different things. But what I saw was the very end of the race. He's going up the mountain, he's all messed up, and his crew's asking him questions. Hey, why are you out here? And I think he just said, he said pride. He said pride. Or what's keeping you going? He said pride. So he comes up the mountain, he gets to the very top of the mountain, and the same spot that I went and sat down at, when I crossed the finish line, was the same spot Gabriel Flores crossed. And the whole reason I'm telling you the story was I was visualizing that spot for about 120 miles. I was visualizing that movie. I was visualizing, me driving through Death Valley, all the checkpoints. But I was visualizing Gabriel Flores sitting down or laying down under that one tree in that one little grassy area. If you all go to Badwater videos, just Google Badwater 135 2006 David Goggins, and you'll see my ex-wife taking the tape off me. In that one spot that I'm sitting in, I visualized that one spot a million times. So it's just an interesting story.
That's interesting. And what I like about this whole thing is, unlike Hurt 100, you got some miles in for that, and San Diego one day. This really does show when you prepare like you break down here that it can have success because of Nyland, you were able to power hike, which probably kept you in the race, right? If you had felt like you had to run, it would have been harder for you.
The only thing was that
You found a rhythm in the power hike. The heat training worked. I mean, you had so much that worked. You had your two vehicles, all that worked. So much of your preparation worked. So that had to be really encouraging for you, and part of the reason you felt like you could go even higher.
Well, I'm glad you talked about those two things. I went back to my accountability mirror, and I wrote down what are my weaknesses. I'm not a great runner, so I put that on my board. I'm not a great runner. Second of all, I was not great in the heat, so I kept repeating those things, and they kind of, I was afraid of them. So literally, man, I was like, well, I guarantee you at about mile.
You break down here that it can have success because
135, 2006 David got.
it's been a while.
see my ex-wife taking the tape off me, and that one spot that I'm sitting in, I visualized that one spot a million times. So it's just an interesting story.
That's interesting. And what I like about this whole thing is, unlike her 100, you got some miles in for that, and said you go one day. This really does show when you prepare like you break down here that it can have success because of an island, you were able to power hike, which probably kept you in the race, right? If you felt like you'd had to run, it would have been harder for you.
Only things that
You found a rhythm in the power hike. The heat training worked. I mean, you had so much that worked. You know, you had your two vehicles, all that worked. So much of your preparation worked. So that had to be really encouraging for you, and part of the reason you felt like you could go even higher.
Well, I'm glad you talked about those two things because those two things, I went back to my accountability mirror and I wrote down what are my weaknesses. I'm not a great runner, so I put that on my board. Not a great runner. Second of all, I was not great in the heat, so I kept repeating those things, and they kind of, I was afraid of them. So literally, man, I was like, well, I guarantee you at about mile 40 or 50, man, my body's gonna break down. So I had to really get that hiking muscle going. And if you run a lot and you don't walk, you can run a 5-minute mile. But if you haven't hiked a lot, you're not gonna be a good run, like a good hiker. So I started, working those different muscle groups, hiking a ton uphill. I was also 90, 100, I'm gonna feel like shit. So I need to kind of mimic how I'm gonna feel. So I put that 50-pound rucksack on, during my training. And I lived in the sauna because I knew that the one thing that gets people out there is the heat. It's the great equalizer, and it made fast runners slow, as we talked about here.
I was just in Lone Pine, Bishop area in the Sierra Nevadas, and as we were driving up, those fucking horseflies started buzzing around.
Come on, man.
One of those horseflies landed on my fucking windshield. We were stopped at a light, like in Bishop or Lone Pine or something.
Yeah, that's where they're
And
at.
I said to my wife, I'm like, that's one of those flies, and she could not fucking believe it. She'd read that, and she couldn't even fucking believe a swarm of those motherfuckers.
It was biblical. It was literally biblical. And another thing that jacked me up, so I'm out there running. I always heard stories about people frying eggs on the daggone pavement out there. And so, they gotta run on the white line because the daggone, pavement's like, it's like 220 or whatever. I'm like, man, this is a bunch of bullshit. I'll never forget going through mile 42 at Stovepipe Wells. And this guy was out there frying an egg on the pavement just to make you think, what the fuck am I doing out here? And I was like, and I looked down, and I said, my God, man, this is some hot shit. So yeah, it was no joke race.
Crazy.
And I also have a picture of my toe in the book.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's it's a nice great picture of that nice. It looks like like you got a red balloon.
Yeah.
Kind of blew it up and put it over my toe.
That's it. That's where we got the description from, man.
Exactly.
Very good. All right, let's give these guys a challenge because it's time for our listeners and readers to start to ratchet up and find some of that extra 60% they've been kind of leaving in the tank. Challenge number 7. The main objective here is to slowly start to remove the governor from your brain. First, a quick reminder of how this process works. In 1999, when I weighed 297 pounds, my first run was a quarter mile. Fast forward to 2007, I ran 205 miles in 39 hours, non-stop. I didn't get there overnight, and I don't expect you to either. Your job is to push past your normal stopping point. Whether you are running on number 7, the main objective here is to slowly start to remove the governor from your brain. First, a quick reminder of how this process works. In 1999, when I weighed 297 pounds, my first run was a quarter mile. Fast forward to 2007, I ran 205 miles in 39 hours, non-stop. I didn't get there overnight, and I don't expect you to either. Your job is to push past your normal stopping point. Whether you are running on a treadmill or doing a set of push-ups, get to the point where you are so tired and in pain that that your mind is begging you to stop. Then push just 5 to 10% further. If the most push-ups you have ever done is 100 in a workout, do 105 or 110. If you normally run 30 miles each week, run 10% more next week. This gradual ramp up will help prevent injury and allow your body and mind to slowly adapt to your new workload. It also resets your baseline, which is important because you're about to increase your workload another 5 to 10% the following week and the week after that. There is so much pain and suffering involved in physical challenges that it's the best training to take command of your inner dialogue. And the newfound mental strength and confidence you gain by continuing to push yourself physically will carry over to other aspects in your life. You will realize that if you are underperforming in your physical challenges, there is a good chance you are underperforming at school and work too. The bottom line is that life is one big mind game. The only person you are playing against is yourself. Stick with this process, and soon what you thought was impossible will be something you do every fucking day of your life. I want to hear your stories. Post on social. Hashtags. Hashtag can't hurt me. Hashtag the 40% rule. Hashtag don't get comfortable. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just one quick thing. Understand this. There's a big caution in this whole chapter. Do not do what I did. That is, and what I mean by that is, I figured out the 40% rule from literally destroying myself. To go out here and say, oh, David Goggins ran 100 miles no training? I can go do that. You might be able to. But the whole thing about it is, you have to do this 5, 10, some of you maybe will go 20% more. But the whole thing is don't go from 0 to 100 because it will jack you up.
Yeah, I mean, just do it as you prescribe here, 5 to 10% each week. And the point is, if you do that, you realize it's infinite. It's infinite where you can go.
100%.
You'll never get to 100. That's the point.
Matter of fact, I put a ceiling on mine for a little bit because I jacked my body up so much, I wasn't able to heal. So I was, running, taping myself up, trying to find different heel wedges and different inserts just to run. So when your body's broken, I had to go so deep in my mind to pull it off that, it was unbelievable. So don't do it my way. Do it this way.
Chapter 8, Talent Not Required. The night before the first long-distance triathlon in my life, I stood with my mother on the deck of a sprawling $7 million beach house in Kona, watching the moonlight play on the water. Most people know Kona, a gorgeous town on the west coast of the island of Hawaii, and triathlons in general, thanks to the Ironman World Championships. Although there are far more Olympic distance and shorter sprint triathlons held around the world than there are Ironman events, it was the original Ironman in Kona that placed the sport on the international radar. It starts with a 2.4-mile swim, followed by a 112-mile bike ride, and closes with a marathon run. Add to that stiff and shifting winds and blistering heat corridors reflected by harsh lava fields, and the race reduces most competitors to open blisters of raw anguish. But I wasn't here for that. I came to Kona to compete in a less celebrated form of even more intense masochism. I was there to compete for the title of Ultraman. Over the next 3 days, I would swim 6.2 miles, ride 261 miles, and run a double marathon, covering the entire perimeter of the Big Island of Hawaii. Once again, I was raising money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, and because I'd been written up and interviewed on camera after Badwater, I was invited by a multimillionaire I'd never met to stay in an absurd palace on the sand in the run-up to the Ultraman World Championships in November 2006. It was a generous gesture, but I was so focused on becoming the very best version of myself, his glitz didn't impress me. In my mind, I still hadn't achieved shit. If anything, staying in his house only inflated the chip on my shoulder. He would never have invited my wannabe thug ass to come chill with him in Kona luxury back in the day. He only reached out because I'd become somebody a rich guy like him wanted to know. Still, I appreciated being able to show my mom a better life. And whenever I was offered a taste, I invited her to experience it with me.
What an exercise.
We climbed out of that cutter, while I kept my own gaze locked at super level.
I'm not ready for this one.
$7 a month place in Brazil anymore, but I was still paying rent on that motherfucker, and will be race launched from the beach beside the pier in downtown Kona, the same start line as the Ironman World Championships. There wasn't much.
Okay, now reverse lunges to finish off.
There were only 30 athletes in the entire field.
3 minutes.
1,200 in the Ironman. It was such a small group, I could look every one of my competitors in the eye and size them up, which is how I noticed the hardest man on the beach. I never did catch his name, but I'll always remember him because he was in a wheelchair. Talk about heart. That man had a presence beyond his stature. He was fucking immense. Ever since I'd started up with Buds, I've been in search of people like that. Men and women with an uncommon way of thinking. One thing that surprised me about military special operations was that some of the guys lived so mainstream. They weren't trying to push themselves every day of their lives. And I wanted to be around people who thought and trained uncommon 24/7, not just when duty called. That man had every excuse in the world to be at home, but he was ready to do one of the hardest stage races in the world, something 99.9% of the public wouldn't even consider, and with just his 2 arms. To me, he was what ultra racing was all about, and it's why after Badwater, I'd become hooked on this world. Talent wasn't required for this sport. It was all about heart and hard work, and it delivered relentless challenge after relentless challenge, always demanding more. But that doesn't mean I was well prepared for this race. I still didn't own a bike. I borrowed one 3 weeks earlier from another friend. It was a Griffin, an uber high-end bicycle, custom made for my friend who was even bigger than I was. I borrowed his clip-in shoes too, which were just shy of clown-sized. I filled the empty space with thick socks and compression tape, and didn't take the time to learn bike mechanics before leaving for Kona. Changing tires, fixing chains and spokes, all the stuff I know how to do now, I hadn't learned yet. I just borrowed the bike and logged over 1,000 miles in the 3 weeks prior to Ultraman. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and get 100-mile rides in before work. On weekends, I'd ride 125 miles, get off the bike and run a marathon. But I only did 6 training swims, just 2 in the open water. And in the Ultra Octagon, all the weaknesses are revealed. The 10-kilometer swim should have taken me about 2.5 hours to complete, but it took me over 3, and it hurt. I was dressed in a sleeveless wetsuit for buoyancy, but it was too tight under my arms, and within 30 minutes,
45 seconds.
I began to chafe. An hour later, the salty edge of my suit had become sandpaper, to my skin with every stroke. I switched from freestyle to side stroke and back again, desperate for
Oh, I can feel it in my
every
quads,
of my arms cut my
but also in my lower back
both sides.
and
Plus the
my
sea was
core.
choppy as hell. I drank seawater. My stomach flipped and flopped like a fish suffocating in fresh air, and I puked a half dozen times at least.
seems to be a good exercise.
Poor mechanics and the strong current. I swam a meandering line that stretched to 7.5 miles. All of that in order to clear what was supposed to be a 6.2-mile swim. My legs were jelly when I staggered to shore, and my vision rocked like a teeter-totter during an earthquake. I had to lie down, then crawl behind the
All right.
back where I vomited again. Other swimmers gathered in the transition area, hopped into their saddles, and pedaled off into the lava fields in a blink.
Ah,
Still had a 90-mile bike ride to knock off before the day was 10 minutes. My armpits began to chafe. An hour of work, they wouldn't even consider, and with just
old school. Hello, my friend. That's what we call Euro training, right? Well, very good, my friend. Das freut mich zu hören. Ja, ich bin vor kurzem erst aus Berlin wiedergekommen. Aber jetzt werde ich, glaube ich, mal bisschen chillen, vielleicht noch 1-2 Stündchen pennen, bevor es dran geht. Ja. Aber freut mich, dass du deine Einheit schon erledigt hast, mein Großer. Oh. Gut. Oh. Oh. Naja. Look out the window and you know what's going on later. Yeah. Alright, dude. It's a fucking snowstorm. Good weather. Eigentlich perfektes Wetter zum Schlittenfahren. Restday war gestern. Da haben wir nur Stretching gemacht. Nee, nicht Jogge. Bufasa. Bufasa. Sachen, die ich jetzt nicht hier so im Internet kundtun kann. Es hat auf jeden Fall mit Schnee zu tun. Aber nun gut, ich werde jetzt erstmal den Stream beenden. Ja, mein Schöner. Bis gleich. Hinhauen.